The vanished flight that I was 39 years old when I boarded Flight 2578 to San Francisco, and I was 39 when I stepped off it. At least that's what my body believed. Reality had a different story to tell. The morning of the flight was unremarkable. April showers pelted the terminal windows at O'Hare as I sipped a mediocre coffee and scrolled through work emails. Just another Monday business trip. Flight attendants with practiced smiles scanned boarding passes while I shuffled down the jet bridge with my fellow passengers. Strangers united only by our shared destination. "Good morning," the flight attendant said as I stepped aboard. "12A is on your right." I nodded, stowing my carry-on and settling into my window seat. The woman next to me smiled politely before returning to her book. Outside, rain streaked across the glass as ground crew scurried about in fluorescent yellow vests. "Ladies and gentlemen, welcome aboard Transcontinental Airlines Flight 2578 to San Francisco. Our flight time today will be approximately 4 hours and 15 minutes. The safety demonstration began. I'd seen it so many times I could recite it in my sleep. Exits here, here, and here. Oxygen masks will drop. Life vests under your seat. The usual choreography of airline safety. I closed my eyes as we taxied, feeling the familiar lurch of takeoff as we climbed through the clouds. The captain's voice crackled over the intercom about our cruising altitude and the weather ahead. Clear skies all the way to California. Then I must have dozed off. When I opened my eyes, the cabin lights were flickering. The plane pitched suddenly, and my stomach lurched. Overhead bins popped open, spilling contents. A chorus of screams erupted around me. "This is your captain," a strained voice announced. "We're experiencing some unexpected turbulence. Please remain in your seats with your seatbelts fastened." Unexpected turbulence. The greatest understatement in aviation history. The woman beside me, Melissa, I would later learn, gripped the armrest, her knuckles white. "Are we going to be okay?" she asked no one in particular. Before anyone could answer, the oxygen masks dropped. The plane banked hard left, then right. A flight attendant stumbled down the aisle before falling to her knees. A blinding light filled the cabin. Not from outside, but somehow around us, through us. My skin tingled as if electricity coursed through my veins. The roar of the engine seemed to fade, replaced by a high-pitched whine that made my teeth ache. And then, silence. Complete, absolute silence. The plane stabilized. The lights returned to normal. Out the window, blue sky and fluffy clouds as if nothing had happened. The captain's voice, now steady, came over the intercom. "Ladies and gentlemen, I apologize for that unexpected turbulence. We appear to have passed through it and all systems are functioning normally. We will be beginning our descent into San Francisco shortly." Collective sighs of relief filled the cabin. Nervous laughter. A few passengers applauded. The crisis had passed. Just another scary moment in the skies that would make for a good story at dinner. But something felt off. The quality of light streaming through my window seemed different, brighter, somehow. And when I checked my phone, it wouldn't turn on despite having been fully charged before takeoff. We landed smoothly at SFO. As the plane taxied to the gate, I glimpsed what appeared to be different terminal architecture than I remembered from my last visit 6 months earlier. "Thank you for flying with us today," the flight attendant announced. "Local time is 11:42 a.m. Please remain seated until we reach the gate." When we finally docked at the jetway, there was a delay. Minutes stretched into a half hour. Passengers grew restless. "What's the holdup?" someone asked. The flight attendant's smile seemed frozen. "Just a small delay with the gate. We appreciate your patience." Finally, the aircraft door opened. Instead of the usual ground crew, men and women in dark suits filed onto the plane. They moved with an unsettling precision. One of them, a tall woman with silver-streaked hair, stepped to the front of the cabin and raised a hand for silence. "Ladies and gentlemen of Flight 2578, my name is Director Catherine Chun of the National Transportation Safety Board. I need everyone to remain calm and seated. What I'm about to tell you will be difficult to understand." The cabin went silent. Today's date is April 10, 2025. Confused murmurs rippled through the cabin. Your flight departed Chicago on April 12, 2010. According to all tracking systems, Flight 2578 disappeared from radar approximately 1 hour after takeoff. Until today, 15 years later, when you appeared in San Francisco airspace without warning. Laughter erupted from several passengers. Someone shouted, "Is this a joke?" Chen's expression remained grave. "This is not a joke. For 15 years, your aircraft has been missing, presumed crashed. Your families have mourned you. The world has moved on. And yet, here you are, exactly as you were when you departed, not a day older." I felt a chill crawl up my spine as I realized what she was saying. 15 years had passed for the world, but for us, it had been a 4-hour flight. We'll be escorting you to a secure facility where medical professionals will examine you. We'll work to contact your families. Please understand, this situation is unprecedented. And just like that, we became the passengers of the vanished flight. The processing center was actually a converted hangar at a military base outside the city. White partitions created a maze of interview rooms and medical stations. Each passenger was assigned a caseworker, a doctor, and a security detail, though they insisted the latter was for our protection. My caseworker, a young man named Elliot who looked like he'd just graduated college, scrolled through his tablet with wide eyes. "So, Mr. Reed, you were a software engineer at Nexus Technologies in 2010. "I am a software engineer," I corrected. Present tense. His smile was sympathetic. Nexus was acquired by Microsoft in 2017. Their Chicago office was closed. I felt a punch to my gut. The company I'd worked for over a decade was gone. My career, my projects, my office erased while I was wherever we had been. What about my apartment? My things? Elliot swiped through more documents. After you were declared legally dead in 2017, your estate was processed according to your will. Your sister, Jennifer Reed, was your beneficiary. I remembered signing that will, thinking it was just a formality. I never imagined Jen would actually have to execute it. And she's still alive, yes. We're contacting her now. Relief washed over me. At least I still had family. The medical examination was thorough. Blood draws, brain scans, psychological evaluations. They treated us like specimens, which I suppose we were. The mystery of our disappearance and sudden reappearance had turned us into scientific anomalies. Your physical age remains consistent with your age at departure, Dr. Patel explained as she examined my results. No cellular aging beyond what would be expected from a 4-hour flight. It's as if time simply stopped for you. Later that evening, we were gathered in what resembled a hotel conference room. The 157 passengers of Flight 2578, seated in uncomfortable chairs, facing a panel of government officials. Director Chun stood again. "We understand you have questions. We have them too. We're working around the clock to understand what happened to your flight." A man in the back stood up. "What about our families? My kids were 7 and 9 when I left. They're in their 20s now. My wife. We're contacting everyone as quickly as possible," Chun assured him. "But please understand, this is sensitive. Many have moved on, remarried, relocated." Another passenger, an elderly woman, raised a trembling hand. "My husband was sick when I left to visit our daughter." "Is he?" Chen's silence was answer enough. The reality of our situation began to sink in. We had become time travelers against our will, thrust into a future where our places had been filled, our absences mourned and eventually accepted. The world had continued spinning without us as the meeting dispersed. I noticed a man watching me from across the room. Mid-30s, with intelligent eyes that seemed to calculate something. When our gazes met, he nodded slightly before turning away. I didn't think much of it then. I should have. They moved us to a hotel that evening, a real one, though heavily guarded. We were free to move about the premises but prohibited from leaving or contacting the outside world without supervision. For our protection, they said. To prevent panic, I in my room. I stood before the mirror, searching my reflection for signs of the time theft. Same light brown hair with early gray at the temples. Same lines around the eyes. Same person who boarded that plane. Only now stranded in a time that had moved on without me. That a knock at my door revealed Melissa, the woman who'd sat beside me on the flight. "Hi," she said tentatively. "I hope I'm not bothering you. I don't want to be alone right now." I gestured for her to come in. In the chaos of medical exams and briefings, we hadn't spoken since the plane. "This is insane," she said, sinking onto the edge of the bed. 15 years. My daughter was starting college when I left to attend this conference. Now she trailed off, eyes filling with tears. "They'll let us contact our families soon," I offered. Though the words felt hollow, she looked up, wiping her eyes. "That's just it. My daughter died 3 years ago. Car accident. My caseworker told me before I could call her." I sat beside her, speechless. What comfort could I possibly offer? Her grief was for a loss she hadn't even been present to mourn. "I'm so sorry, Melissa. The worst part is I don't feel it yet. It's like hearing about a stranger. She was 19 when I last saw her. I never knew the woman she became." We sat in silence for a while, two people adrift in time. "Have you noticed anything strange?" she asked suddenly. "About the other passengers?" I frowned. "Strange how?" "That businessman, Campbell. The one in first class with the British accent." She lowered her voice. "I overheard him talking to his caseworker. He seemed to know things. About technology, politics. Things that happened after we disappeared." Before I could respond, another knock came at the door. When I opened it, there stood the man who had watched me earlier. "Daniel Reed?" he asked. "I'm Thomas Wright. We need to talk." Melissa stood to leave, but Wright shook his head. "You should hear this too, Miss Chun." He closed the door behind him and lowered his voice. "I don't have much time. They're watching us all closely. But you need to know, not everyone on that plane is telling the truth." "What do you mean?" I asked. "Some of us know what happened. Why we disappeared. It wasn't an accident." Melissa scoffed. "That's ridiculous. You're saying our plane was deliberately—" "What? Hidden for 15 years. Wright's expression remained deadly serious. "Not hidden. Taken. And now we've been returned." "Taken by whom?" I asked, part of me not wanting to hear the answer. "I don't know exactly. But Campbell does. So does Reyes in 23B and that flight attendant, Peterson. They're part of it." "Part of what?" Melissa demanded. "The experiment." Wright's eyes darted to the door. "Listen to me. They didn't expect any of us to remember. But some of us do. Flashes. Dreams. The light wasn't turbulence. It was them." Before he could continue, his phone buzzed. He checked it, his face paling. "I have to go. Be careful who you trust. And whatever you do, don't tell anyone if you start remembering." After he left, Melissa and I stared at each other in stunned silence. "He's crazy," she finally said. "Stress-induced paranoia or something." I wanted to agree with her, but something about Wright's warning resonated with a fragment of memory. Something about that light, that silence during the turbulence. That night, I dreamed of a white room with no doors or windows, and voices speaking in a language I couldn't understand but somehow knew. The next morning, they began allowing supervised family reunions. My sister Jen arrived, now 55 instead of the 40 I remembered. Her hair had gone completely gray. Wrinkles framed eyes that had seen 15 years I had missed. We embraced. And it was like hugging a stranger wearing my sister's face. "Danny," she whispered, tears streaming down her cheeks. "It's really you." We sat in a small meeting room while a facilitator observed quietly from the corner. Jen couldn't stop staring at me. "You look exactly the same. Exactly like the last time I saw you at the airport." She shook her head in wonder. "I buried an empty casket, 3 years after you disappeared. The therapist said it would help with closure. I'm sorry you had to go through that." She laughed, a brittle sound. "Don't apologize. You're the one who lost 15 years. But I didn't experience them. For me, it was just a normal flight until the turbulence. Then we landed and here I am." Jen reached into her purse and pulled out her phone. "I brought photos. I thought you might want to see. She paused. Mom died in 2018, peacefully in her sleep. I nodded, feeling numb. Another loss I hadn't been present for. She showed me pictures of her life, her children now grown, her new home in Portland, holidays and birthdays I had missed. I watched 15 years scroll by in a digital slideshow. What about my friends? Mike and Sasha. Jen's expression softened. Mike moved to Austin for work. He's married with twins now. And Sasha. She hesitated. Sasha took your disappearance hard. Really hard. She waited for years, but eventually, she moved on. I finished for her. She married in 2016. David something. Nice guy. They have a little boy. The life I might have had, gone. Sasha and I had been dating for 2 years. Nothing official, but we'd been talking about moving in together. Now she was someone else's wife, mother to someone else's child. When our time was up, Jen hugged me fiercely. I'm coming back tomorrow. And the next day, I'm not losing you again. As she was leaving, she turned back. Oh, almost forgot. They recovered your phone from the plane, right? Your password was always Mom's birthday? 0714. But I don't know if it still works after all this time. That afternoon, another all-passenger meeting was called. This time, a new face joined Director Chan at the front. A tall man in a crisp naval uniform adorned with decorations. Admiral James Hartwell, United States Navy. Chun introduced him. The Admiral heads the task force investigating your flight's disappearance and return. Hartwell stepped forward. Ladies and gentlemen, I'll be brief. Since your return, we've been analyzing the aircraft extensively. Initial findings indicate unusual radiation signatures consistent with theoretical models of spacetime distortion. Murmurs rippled through the crowd. In plain English, your plane appears to have entered what we might call a temporal anomaly, a bubble of altered time. Inside this bubble, time proceeded normally for you, but at a significantly slower rate than the outside world. A woman raised her hand. Are you saying we time traveled? In a manner of speaking, yes. Though you experienced only hours, 15 years passed for the rest of us. But how is that possible? Someone else called out. Hartwell's expression was grim. That's the question we're trying to answer. Natural phenomena like this are theoretically possible but have never been documented. The alternative, he let the implication hang in the air. You think someone did this to us? I said, loud enough for everyone to hear. The Admiral's eyes found mine. We're exploring all possibilities, Mr. Reed. After the meeting, I was approached by a young woman in a lab coat. Mr. Reed? I'm Dr. Sarah Nowak. I was hoping to ask you a few questions about your experience during the turbulence event. Something about her eager expression made me uneasy. Why me specifically? We're interviewing several passengers. Your seat location is of particular interest. The anomalous readings were strongest in your section of the aircraft. I remembered Wright's warning about being careful who I trusted. I don't remember much. Just the lights flickering, then everything going back to normal. She nodded, making notes. No unusual sensations? Sounds? Visions? I thought about my dream of the White Room, the voices. No, nothing like that. Interesting. She handed me her card. If you remember anything else, please contact me directly. As she walked away, I noticed Campbell, the British businessman Wright had mentioned, watching our interaction with interest. When our eyes met, he smiled and raised his coffee cup in a mock toast. Back in my room, I examined my old phone. Dead, of course. I plugged it into the charger they'd provided, surprised when it actually powered on. The interface looked ancient compared to the sleek devices I'd glimpsed people using since our return. I entered my mother's birthday, 0714. The phone unlocked .no service, but I could still access stored data. Photos, contacts, emails, relics of my former life. I scrolled through, feeling like an archaeologist of my own past. Then I noticed something odd. A video file dated April 12, 2010, the day of our flight, that I had no memory of recording. I pressed play. My own face filled the screen, looking nervous. The background showed an airport bathroom. If you're watching this, something went wrong, my recorded self said. The mission was compromised. They know about Project Kronos. Campbell, is the video cut off abruptly? I stared at the black screen, a cold sweat breaking out across my forehead. I had no memory of recording this message. No memory of any Project Kronos. And I certainly had no prior knowledge of Campbell before boarding that flight. Yet there I was, warning myself about him. A knock at the door made me jump. I quickly pocketed the phone. It was Melissa. Can I come in? Something happened. Her face was pale, her hands trembling slightly. Right as dead, she said once the door was closed. They're saying he had a heart attack, but I saw them carrying him out. There was blood. Jesus, I whispered. When? About an hour ago. Right after he tried to talk to Campbell. I told her about the video on my phone, half expecting her to think I was crazy. Instead, she grew even paler. Daniel, I found something too. In my suitcase. A notebook I don't remember packing, but it's definitely my handwriting. She pulled a small leather journal from her pocket. It contains information about everyone on the flight. Personal details, routines, weaknesses. Like I was studying them. Let me see. She handed it over. Page after page of meticulous notes about our fellow passengers. Their histories, habits, relationships. Things no stranger should know, and on the last page, a single sentence, when the lights come, remember who you are. What does it mean? She asked. I don't remember writing any of this. I thought about the video, about Wright's warnings, about the dream of the White Room. I think I said slowly that we're not who we think we are. That night, I couldn't sleep. I paced my room, turning over the strange puzzle pieces in my mind. The video. Melissa's notebook. Wright's warning before his mysterious heart attack. I tried the hotel room's TV, flipping through channels to distract myself. News reports about our return dominated every station. Experts debating the scientific implications. Religious leaders calling it a miracle. Conspiracy theorists suggesting government experiments. I paused on a breaking news alert. Exclusive, vanished flight passenger had government ties. The reporter stood outside our hotel. Sources confirmed that Thomas Wright, one of the passengers on the mysterious Flight 2578, was formerly employed by Quantum Defense Systems, a military contractor specializing in experimental physics. Wright left the company under unclear circumstances in 2009, just months before the flight disappeared. My phone, my old phone, buzzed with an incoming text. Impossible, since it had no service, yet there it was. Roof. Now. Come alone. No sender information. Against my better judgment, I took the emergency stairwell up 6 flights to the roof access door. It was propped open with a fire extinguisher. The night air was cool, the San Francisco skyline glittering around us. A figure stood near the edge, silhouetted against the city lights. I've been waiting for you to remember, Daniel, Campbell said without turning around. His British accent seemed less pronounced now. Remember what? I approached cautiously. He turned, his face half in shadow. Your actual mission. Not the cover story about the software conference. I don't know what you're talking about. Campbell sighed. Of course you don't. The memory wipe was thorough. But it's starting to crack, isn't it? The dreams. The video you found. Pieces returning. Who are you? I demanded. Someone like you. Part of the program. He gestured toward the sky. We weren't supposed to come back, you know? The experiment was meant to be one way. Send the plane forward 15 years, observe the effects. Simple time dilation test. That's insane. Is it? Quantum Defense was working on temporal field technology for decades. Project Kronos was the culmination, the first human trial. The name for my video. Project Kronos. You're saying our government deliberately sent our plane through time? That's not our government, Campbell interrupted. A private consortium. Military contractors, tech billionaires, scientists willing to cross ethical lines. They needed human subjects, a cross-section of the population. What better than an airplane full of random people? And Wright? Did they kill him because he remembered? Campbell's face hardened. Wright remembered too much too soon. He was going to expose everything before we were ready. We? Those of us placed on the flight to monitor the experiment. Insurance policies, if you will. My head was spinning. And what am I in all this? Another monitor. No, Daniel. You're much more important. Campbell stepped closer. You designed the temporal field generator. You're the reason any of this works. Images flashed through my mind. A laboratory. Equations on whiteboards. A device humming with energy. That's not possible. I'm a software engineer at Nexus. I design inventory management systems. That's your cover identity. Very thoroughly implanted, I might add. The real Daniel Reed has degrees in quantum physics and engineering. You've been working on temporal mechanics since graduate school. I backed away from him. You're lying. Am I? Then how did you know to make that video warning yourself about me? How did your companion Melissa know to document the other passengers? Melissa is part of this too. We all are in different ways. some willing, some not. A helicopter appeared on the horizon, its searchlight sweeping the city below. Campbell glanced at it nervously. We don't have much time. They'll have noticed you're gone from your room. What do you want from me? Your help. The experiment isn't over. This was just phase 1, sending objects forward in time. Phase 2 is sending them back. The implications were staggering. Time travel. Actual time travel. Precisely. And you're the key. Your past self encoded the return protocol into your subconscious. We need to extract it before they do. They? The government agencies who now control the project. They think they can weaponize it. The helicopter was getting closer, clearly heading toward the hotel. I don't remember any protocol, I said. I don't remember being a physicist. Campbell pulled something from his pocket, a small silver device the size of a pen. This will help you remember. It's a neural key, designed to unlock suppressed memories. I stared at the device, torn between curiosity and suspicion. Why should I trust you? Because I'm not asking you to trust me. I'm asking you to trust yourself. He held out the device. Your past self knew this moment would come. That's why you left yourself clues. The helicopter was almost upon us now, its searchlight sweeping the neighboring buildings. I reached for the device as my fingers closed around it. The roof access door burst open. Armed men poured through, followed by Director Chun and Admiral Hartwell. Step away from him, Campbell, Hartwell shouted. Campbell smiled sadly. Too late. The device in my hand pulsed with warmth. A familiar white light began to emanate from it, the same light I remembered from the plane. What have you done? Chun demanded. Activated the return protocol, Campbell said calmly. Daniel's mind is remembering now. All of it. And he was right. Images flooded my consciousness. The laboratory, the experiments, the volunteer assignment to monitor my own technology in action. My real identity. As the armed men surrounded us, I turned to Campbell. The others on the plane, the innocent passengers. What happens to them? His expression was unreadable. That depends on what you remember, Dr. Reed. They confined me to a new facility after that, a government black site disguised as a medical center. No more hotel comforts, no more family visits, just endless interrogations and tests. Admiral Hartwell personally oversaw my questioning. We know about Project Kronos, Dr. Reed, he said during one session. We know about your role in developing the temporal displacement field. What we don't know is how to control it. I sat across from him, still grappling with my dual identities. The software engineer and the quantum physicist, both equally real in my memories. Even if I could help you, I wouldn't. The technology was never meant to be weaponized. Hartwell leaned forward. Yet you built it for quantum defense, a weapons contractor. I built it for scientific advancement. They had other ideas. And what were Campbell's ideas? Why activate the neural key? I remained silent. The truth was, I wasn't sure myself. My recovered memories were fragmented, incomplete. I remembered designing the technology, volunteering for the flight, creating the failsafes. But the ultimate purpose, the reason for sending 157 people 15 years into the future, remained obscured. Where are the other passengers? I asked instead. Safe. Being debriefed. Like you. And Melissa Chun. A flicker of surprise crossed Hartwell's face. Ms. Chun is being held at another facility. Her connection to you and Campbell is concerning. She's innocent in all this. She was placed on that flight without knowing why, just like most of the others. Hartwell studied me. Yet she had a detailed dossier on every passenger. Hardly the actions of an innocent. Those weren't her notes. They were placed there, just like my video was planted on my phone. By whom? By us, our past selves. Insurance against memory wipes. Days passed in this manner. Questions, evasions, half-truths on both sides. Meanwhile, I worked to piece together my fragmented memories, trying to understand the full scope of Project Kronos. Then, one night, I awoke to find Director Chun sitting beside my bed. We need to talk, she said quietly. without recording devices or Admiral Hartwell. I sat up cautiously. Why? Because the Admiral isn't telling you everything. The temporal technology didn't just send your plane forward in time. It created ripples. Effects we're still trying to understand. What kind of effects? Chun pulled out a tablet and showed me news headlines from the past week. Temporal anomalies reported worldwide since flight's return. Scientists detect quantum fluctuations in Earth's magnetic field. Space-time tears, observed in lower atmosphere. The fabric of reality is destabilizing, she said gravely. Your return triggered something. These rifts are appearing with increasing frequency. If they continue to grow, the protocol, I whispered, another memory surfacing. It wasn't just to help us remember. It was a stabilization sequence. Chen's eyes widened. Can you implement it? Not from here. I need access to the plane. The temporal field generator is still aboard, disguised as part of the navigation system. Hartwell had the plane dismantled for study. My blood ran cold. Then it may already be too late. I explained what I now remembered, that the temporal displacement wasn't a simple forward jump. It created a bubble of altered spacetime that needed to be properly collapsed once the experiment concluded. Without the stabilization protocol, the bubble would begin to rupture, creating cascading failures in the surrounding spacetime continuum. You're saying your return could trigger some kind of temporal disaster? Chun asked, horrified. Not could. Those anomalies are just the beginning. She stood abruptly. I need to contact Hartwell. He already knows. I said. Why do you think they've been interrogating me so aggressively? They want to weaponize the rifts, not close them. Chen's face paled. How can you be sure? Because that was always the military application, creating controllable tears in spacetime that could be used for tactical advantage. Imagine deploying a bomb that doesn't just explode but distorts time itself in the blast radius. She left without another word. I didn't see her for 2 days. When she returned, she brought Melissa with her. You were right, Chen said, locking the door behind them. Hartwell isn't trying to close the rifts. He's studying them, measuring their expansion rates. They've recovered enough of the generator to attempt replication. Melissa looked shell-shocked. They showed me the data. The rifts are appearing faster now. One opened in downtown Chicago yesterday. 3 people simply vanished. We're breaking you out, Chin announced. Tonight, Campbell and some of the other monitors have already escaped. They're gathering what remains of the original equipment. Why are you helping us? I asked Chun suspiciously. Her expression was grim. Because 15 years ago, my brother was on your flight. He's one of the passengers who doesn't remember being part of the experiment. And I won't let Hartwell's ambition endanger him or anyone else. The escape was surprisingly simple. Chun had cultivated allies within the facility, scientists who understood the dangers of what Hartwell was pursuing. With their help, Melissa and I were smuggled out in a laundry truck, driven to a private airfield where a small jet waited. Campbell met us on the tarmac. Cutting it rather close, he said, his British accent fully returned. The rifts are accelerating. We've detected 17 new ones in the past hour alone. Aboard the jet were 4 other passengers from Flight 2578, all part of the original monitoring team, their memories now restored. Where are we going? I asked as we took off. Back to where it began, Campbell replied. The quantum defense testing facility in Nevada. It's abandoned now, but the equipment we need is still there, hidden in an underground bunker. During the flight, I reviewed the data they'd compiled on the rifts. They were appearing worldwide, growing in size and duration. Some lasted only seconds, others persisted for hours. People, animals, even buildings caught in them simply disappeared, sent who knows where or when. The original plan, Campbell explained, was to create a controlled temporal bubble around the aircraft. Send it forward, then retrieve it using the stabilization protocol. A simple proof of concept. What went wrong? Melissa asked. Politics. Funding cuts. The project was shut down before the retrieval mechanism was ready. The plane went forward as planned, but we had no way to bring it back. So what changed? I asked. Why did we suddenly return after 15 years? Campbell looked grim. Someone reactivated the generator. We believe Hartwell's team found the original research and rebuilt it. But why bring us back? If they know about the rifts it would cause because they want the rifts, or at least they believe they can control them, turn them into tactical assets. The Nevada desert stretched below us as we began our descent toward a cluster of abandoned buildings surrounding a dried lake bed. Won't they follow us here? Melissa asked. Eventually, Chen said, but we've masked our flight plan. It should buy us a few hours. The facility was eerily silent, a ghost town of faded government signs and weather-beaten research buildings. Campbell led us to what appeared to be an old storage shed. Inside, he moved aside some boxes to reveal a keypad. After entering a complex sequence, the floor opened to expose a staircase. Welcome back to Project Kronos, he said, leading us down. The bunker was surprisingly well-preserved, a vast underground laboratory filled with equipment draped in dust covers. Banks of computers lined the walls. In the center sat what looked like a massive particle accelerator ring. The prototype, I whispered, another memory clicking into place. This is where we first tested the field generator. Before miniaturizing it for the aircraft, yes, Campbell confirmed. And it's our best hope for implementing the stabilization protocol at sufficient power to close all the rifts. We worked frantically, removing covers, checking connections, bringing ancient systems back online. My recovered knowledge guided my hands with a surety my conscious mind still found disorienting. The rifts are increasing exponentially, Chen reported, monitoring a laptop displaying global anomaly readings. At this rate, we have less than 6 hours before they become uncontainable. I calibrated the temporal stabilization matrix while Campbell reconnected the power systems. Melissa and Chen worked on the monitoring stations, tracking the growing rifts that now numbered in the hundreds worldwide. Power systems at 80%, Campbell announced. It's not ideal, but it should be sufficient. My fingers danced across the control panel, muscle memory from a life I was still struggling to fully remember. The protocol requires a quantum anchor, something that exists in both timeframes to serve as a stabilization point. The aircraft fragments, Chen suggested. Hartwell's team has them. We don't need the whole plane, I said, another memory surfacing. Just something that traveled with us. Something that existed in 2010 and continues to exist now. Melissa pulled out her notebook. Will this work? It was with me the whole time. I nodded. Perfect. Place it in the containment field. She positioned the notebook in a small chamber at the edge of the accelerator ring. I initiated the scanning sequence, watching as the system mapped its quantum signature. Anchor established, I confirmed. Beginning stabilization protocol. The massive ring hummed to life, blue energy pulsing around its circumference. On Chen's monitors, we could see the rifts represented as red blotches on a global map continuing to multiply. It's not enough, Campbell said tensely. The anchor is too small to generate sufficient coherence. I studied the readouts, my mind racing. We need more mass. More connections between the two timeframes. The passengers, Melissa realized. If we were all part of the displacement, we could collectively serve as the anchor. That would require gathering all 157 passengers, Chen objected. Impossible in the time we have left. I shook my head. Not physically. The quantum entanglement persists regardless of location. We just need to establish a coherent field that can reach them all simultaneously. Campbell's eyes widened with understanding. The neural keys. If we broadcast the activation signal globally, we could create a quantum network using our shared temporal displacement as the foundation. I finished. We worked feverishly reconfiguring the prototype to generate a global activation pulse. It would activate the latent neural keys in every passenger, creating a momentary quantum network of minds that experienced the same temporal shift. 3 hours until critical threshold, Chen warned, watching the rifts spreading across her screen. As we prepared the modified protocol, a distant explosion rocked the facility. They found us, Campbell said grimly. Chen checked the security feeds. Hartwell's team. At least 24 armed personnel approaching from the north. Keep working, I told the others. I'll buy us some time. I raced to the bunker's security system, activating the old defensive countermeasures. Blast doors sealed, emergency protocols engaged. It wouldn't hold them forever, but perhaps long enough. When I returned, Melissa was completing the final calibrations. Ready to initiate on your command. Another explosion, closer this time. The lights flickered momentarily. They're trying to cut the power, Campbell warned. I took a deep breath, surveying the machine we'd rebuilt, the culmination of work I had apparently spent my life on, though I could only remember fragments of it. Initiate the pulse. The accelerator ring glowed with intensifying energy. A wave of blue light erupted upward, passing through the ceiling as if it weren't there, expanding outward in all directions. On Chen's monitor, tiny blue dots appeared, the passengers of Flight 2578, scattered across the country. Each one lighting up as the pulse reached them, awakening the quantum connection they all shared. The bunker door buckled under another explosion. Armed figures poured through the breach. "Stop them," Hartwell's voice commanded. The protocol must not complete. But it was too late. The quantum network had formed. I felt it in my mind, connections to people I barely knew yet was inexorably linked to through our shared temporal displacement. The accelerator ring spun faster, the energy shifting from blue to white. The same blinding light we had experienced on the plane 15 years ago. "It's working," Campbell shouted over the chaos. "The rifts are beginning to close." On Chen's monitor, the red blotches representing temporal rifts started shrinking, collapsing inward as the stabilization protocol resealed the tiers in reality. Hartwell pushed his way to the front of his team, weapon raised. "You don't understand what you're doing. The power we could harness, the power to destroy reality itself," I countered. "This was never meant to be a weapon, Admiral." The white light reached critical intensity, enveloping the entire bunker. Time seemed to slow, sounds stretching into meaningless echoes. In that suspended moment, I saw everything clearly, the complete picture of Project Kronos, my role in creating it, the safeguards I had built in case it was ever misused. I remembered why I had volunteered for the flight, why I had hidden the protocol within my own mind. Some technologies are too dangerous to exist, even in the name of progress. The light reached its apex, and reality itself seemed to shudder. A sonic boom of collapsing energy knocked everyone off their feet. Then darkness. When I opened my eyes, the accelerator ring had gone dark. The monitoring stations showed a world clear of temporal rifts, the space-time continuum healing itself. Hartwell and his men lay unconscious, the shock wave having hit them hardest at the entry point. Campbell helped me to my feet. "Did it work?" Shin checked her readings. "All rifts closed. Quantum field stabilizing." "And the passengers?" Melissa asked. "Their connection will fade," I explained, knowledge flowing through me with perfect clarity. The neural keys were designed to dissolve once used. They'll return to their lives with only vague memories of what happened, if any at all. "And us?" Campbell asked quietly. I looked at my fellow monitors, the ones who had been chosen to remember, to safeguard against this very scenario. "We remember. Someone has to." In the days that followed, the world struggled to explain what had happened. The brief epidemic of temporal anomalies was attributed to equipment malfunctions, mass hysteria, or elaborate hoaxes. The passengers of Flight 2578 became celebrities for a time, though most could recall little about their experience. Hartwell's operation was officially denied by the government. He himself was quietly reassigned to an obscure post in Antarctica, his ambitions thoroughly checked by forces even he couldn't control. The technology behind Project Kronos was systematically dismantled. Its components scattered to research facilities across the globe, each piece useless without the others. The knowledge to rebuild it existed now in only a handful of minds, mine among them, and we had made our peace with carrying that burden. Melissa and I settled in a small coastal town under new identities. Campbell disappeared to Europe. Chun returned to her government position, a silent guardian against future attempts to weaponize the technology. Sometimes I wake in the night remembering the white room from my dreams, understanding now that it wasn't a dream at all, but a memory of the tests we conducted, the barriers we pushed against. We had touched something profound, the very fabric of existence, and emerged changed. Neither fully the people we had been before boarding that plane, nor completely the ones we were engineered to be. 15 years lost, yet somehow still within us. Time, it seems, is more flexible than we imagined, but not without its rules. Not without its price. I was 39 when I boarded Flight 2578 and 39 when I stepped off it into a world 15 years older. Now I live each day aware of how precious time truly is, how miraculous and how terrifying. How easily disrupted, yet how stubbornly it persists in flowing forward, carrying us all with it toward a future we can only hope to be ready for. The END. If you liked the story, subscribe to our channel and share your impressions in the comments. We try to post new stories every day.